Imagine waking up to find that your host country has mandated your return home. In 2025, this unsettling reality has affected numerous Filipinos worldwide, as several nations have enforced policies compelling their departure. In this video, we'll delve into 10 countries that have recently implemented such measures, exploring the reasons behind these decisions and their profound impact on the Filipino community. Stay tuned to uncover the full story. Country number 1, United States. In early 2025, the United States took a hard stance on immigration enforcement, significantly impacting many Filipinos living in the country. Under the Trump administration, deportation efforts ramped up, targeting undocumented individuals and those with legal infractions. One of the most striking incidents involved the deportation of 24 Filipinos accused of various criminal activities. The Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Jose Romualdez, confirmed that these individuals had already been in the deportation pipeline before, but their removal was finalized under the administration's intensified immigration crackdown. Alongside them, another 16 Filipinos remain in ICE custody, awaiting similar deportation procedures. This sudden wave of removals has sent shockwaves through the Filipino-American community, leaving many families separated and uncertain about their future. The increased deportations have sparked debates about the broader consequences of such strict immigration policies. Advocacy groups have voiced concerns about the fairness of these removals, particularly for individuals who have spent years building their lives in the U.S. Many fear that even law-abiding Filipinos who lack proper documentation could be next, fueling anxiety among the nearly 4.2 million Filipinos in America. While the U.S. government argues that these measures are necessary for national security and legal integrity, critics see it as part of a larger, more aggressive stance against immigrants. As deportations continue, affected individuals are left to rebuild their lives in the Philippines, facing an uncertain economic and social reintegration process. Country number 2, Lebanon. Lebanon, once a thriving hub for migrant workers, has been facing an economic collapse that has left thousands of foreign workers, including Filipinos, struggling to survive. The country's worsening financial crisis, coupled with political instability, has caused businesses to shut down, wages to be delayed, and basic necessities to become unaffordable. For many overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, the dream of earning a stable income in Lebanon has turned into a nightmare, with many unable to access proper health care, wages, or even secure their safety amidst growing unrest. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, the Philippine government, through the Department of Migrant Workers, DMW, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, DFA, launched an emergency repatriation program to bring affected Filipinos back home. By February 2025, over 1,569 OFWs, along with 68 dependents, had been successfully repatriated, with many more awaiting assistance. This large-scale return highlights the challenges migrant workers face in volatile economies and the Philippine government's efforts to prioritize their well-being. However, the sudden return home presents a new challenge. Many repatriated workers now struggle to find employment opportunities in the Philippines, where jobs remain scarce. The government has promised reintegration programs and financial assistance, but for many, rebuilding their lives remains an uphill battle. This crisis in Lebanon serves as a stark reminder of the risks that come with labor migration and the need for stronger support systems for OFWs working in unstable regions. Country number 3, Kuwait. Kuwait has long been a destination for thousands of Filipino domestic workers, but in 2025, a diplomatic standoff between the two nations has led to a crisis for many overseas Filipino workers, OFWs. The conflict traces back to growing concerns over the mistreatment and abuse of Filipino workers, most notably the tragic murder of Julibi Ranara in 2023. Following this, the Philippine government imposed a deployment ban on new domestic workers to Kuwait, citing severe safety concerns. In response, the Kuwaiti government retaliated by halting visa issuances for all Filipino nationals, effectively forcing many to leave the country as their work permits expired. This sudden shift has left thousands of OFWs jobless, uncertain of their future, and scrambling to return home, often without savings or alternative employment. The Philippine government has been working to provide repatriation assistance and reintegration programs, but the abrupt nature of this situation has created financial hardships for many returning workers. Many OFWs took on debt to secure jobs in Kuwait, and their sudden return means struggling with unemployment while still supporting their families back home. While negotiations between the two governments continue, this crisis highlights the vulnerability of Filipino workers abroad and the urgent need for stronger protections and agreements to ensure their safety and job security. Country number 4, Israel. The ongoing conflict in Israel has made it increasingly unsafe for foreign workers, including thousands of Filipinos employed as caregivers and domestic helpers. With rising tensions and continuous hostilities in parts of the country, many Filipinos have been caught in dangerous situations, prompting the Philippine government to initiate voluntary repatriation programs. In early 2025, multiple Filipinos in high-risk areas were urged to leave, with flights arranged to bring them back home. However, for many, returning to the Philippines means giving up stable jobs, which has made the decision difficult despite the security concerns. As the situation in Israel remains unpredictable, the fear of being caught in the crossfire has forced many Filipinos to reconsider their stay. The Philippine Embassy has been actively assisting OFWs with relocation options, but some workers choose to remain, hoping for stability and fearing financial struggles if they leave. This crisis once again highlights the risks migrant workers face in conflict zones and the tough choices they must make between safety and livelihood. Country number 5, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been one of the most sought-after destinations for Filipino workers, particularly in construction, domestic work, and healthcare. However, beneath the promise of stable jobs and better wages, many OFWs have faced harsh realities, including unpaid salaries, poor working conditions, and cases of abuse. In 2021 and 2022, the Philippine government took a bold step by suspending the deployment of workers to Saudi Arabia due to widespread reports of labor violations and the non-payment of wages by several Saudi employers. This move was meant to push the Saudi government to take action, ensuring that Filipino workers were treated fairly. In response, Saudi authorities pledged to address these concerns, including settling the unpaid wages of thousands of OFWs. Yet the damage had already been done. Many Filipinos had been forced to return home, financially drained and uncertain about their future. By 2025, while some issues have been resolved, the struggle for fair treatment continues. Many repatriated OFWs are still waiting for their back wages, while others have been left jobless and struggling to reintegrate into the Philippine workforce. Despite Saudi Arabia remaining one of the largest employers of Filipino workers, concerns over worker protection persist, with advocacy groups urging stricter bilateral agreements to prevent similar crises. The situation highlights the vulnerability of migrant workers in foreign countries, where labor laws often fail to protect them. As thousands of Filipinos continue to seek employment in Saudi Arabia, the question remains: will their rights finally be safeguarded, or will history repeat itself? Country number 6, Hungary. Hungary, a growing destination for Filipino workers in Europe, has recently tightened its immigration policies, making it increasingly difficult for foreign laborers to secure stable employment. While the country has relied on migrant workers to fill labor shortages in industries like construction, manufacturing, and hospitality, new regulations in 2025 have placed stricter conditions on work permits and visa renewals. Unlike other European nations, Hungary lacks a formal repatriation agreement with the Philippines, meaning that Filipino workers have little government-backed support when facing employment uncertainties. The sudden shifts in immigration policies have left many OFWs struggling with job security, forcing some to leave voluntarily rather than risk deportation. For many Filipinos, returning home after investing time and money to work in Hungary is a tough reality. Many took out loans to cover their recruitment costs, hoping for long-term employment, only to be faced with unexpected legal barriers. The Philippine government has started to intervene, negotiating better working conditions and pushing for more structured agreements to protect its citizens. However, as Hungary continues to adjust its labor policies to prioritize European workers, the future for Filipino migrants in the country remains uncertain. The growing unpredictability highlights the risks OFWs face when moving to destinations with unstable labor protections, emphasizing the need for better prepared migration policies that ensure long-term job security for Filipino workers abroad. Country number 7, Qatar. Qatar has long been a top destination for Filipino workers, particularly in construction, hospitality, and domestic work. With its booming economy and demand for foreign labor, thousands of overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, have moved there in search of better-paying jobs. However, behind the towering skyscrapers and rapid development, many workers face harsh conditions due to the country's strict sponsorship system, also known as kafala. This system ties a worker's legal status to their employer, making it difficult for them to change jobs or leave the country without permission. Over the years, there have been rising reports of labor rights violations, including cases of delayed wages, poor living conditions, and abusive employers. While Qatar has made some reforms in response to international pressure, many OFWs still find themselves trapped in vulnerable situations, prompting the Philippine government to step in. In 2025, several cases of Filipino workers experiencing maltreatment have forced the Philippine government to ramp up its repatriation efforts. Many OFWs, particularly domestic workers, have been brought back home after escaping abusive employers or being left stranded without wages. While some returnees receive financial aid and reintegration support, others struggle to find new opportunities in the Philippines. This crisis has reignited calls for stricter bilateral agreements between the Philippines and Qatar to ensure better worker protections. Despite the risks, many Filipinos continue to seek employment in the country due to its high wages, compared to local job opportunities. However, as more workers face exploitation, the question remains, how many more must suffer before lasting labor reforms take effect? Country number 8, United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates, UAE, has long been a land of opportunity for Filipino workers, with thousands employed in industries like construction, hospitality, healthcare, and domestic services. Many OFWs move to the UAE with hopes of earning higher wages and securing a better future for their families. However, the country's job market is highly dependent on economic conditions, and when financial downturns or corporate restructuring occur, migrant workers are often the first to be affected. In 2025, a wave of layoffs and job redundancies has left many Filipinos in a desperate situation, struggling to find new employment before their work visas expire. Unlike in some countries where migrant workers have legal protections, in the UAE, losing a job means facing immediate visa cancellation, forcing many to either leave or risk overstaying illegally. For OFWs who have built their lives in the UAE, returning to the Philippines unexpectedly can be devastating. Many workers have financial obligations, such as loans and family expenses, that they plan to manage with their overseas earnings. The Philippine government has stepped in to provide repatriation assistance for those affected, but the sudden loss of income remains a major challenge for returnees. Despite these risks, many Filipinos still see the UAE as a prime destination for employment, given its tax-free salaries and high demand for skilled labor. However, the ongoing economic fluctuations serve as a harsh reminder that job security for migrant workers can be fragile, and without stronger labor protections, many will continue to face the uncertainty of being forced to leave at any moment. Country number 9, Malaysia. Malaysia has long been a major destination for Filipino workers, especially in industries such as construction, domestic work, and manufacturing. However, in 2025, the Malaysian government has intensified its crackdown on undocumented foreign workers, leading to a surge in arrests and deportations. Immigration authorities have conducted widespread raids in factories, plantations, and urban centers, targeting those without valid work permits. As a result, many Filipinos, particularly those who entered the country illegally or overstayed their visas, have been forced to return home. While the government claims these measures are necessary to regulate its labor force and curb illegal employment, the abrupt detentions have raised concerns about the treatment of migrant workers, many of whom were left stranded without wages or legal support. For the deported Filipinos, returning to the Philippines comes with significant hardships. Many had invested years working in Malaysia to support their families, and being sent back abruptly means facing unemployment and financial instability. The Philippine government has called for fairer treatment of its nationals, urging Malaysia to adopt a more structured approach to handling undocumented workers instead of mass deportations. However, as Malaysia continues to enforce stricter immigration policies, the risks for undocumented OFWs remain high. This crisis highlights the ongoing challenges of irregular migration and the need for better legal pathways to ensure that Filipino workers abroad can work safely and with proper documentation. Country number 10, South Korea. South Korea has been a popular destination for Filipino workers, particularly in the manufacturing, factory, and service industries under the Employment Permit System, EPS. However, in 2025, the South Korean government has ramped up efforts to regulate its foreign workforce, tightening visa rules and cracking down on undocumented workers. Many Filipinos, particularly those who overstayed their visas or entered the country illegally, are now facing forced deportation as authorities conduct mass inspections and raids across major cities. These strict measures are part of South Korea's broader plan to prioritize local employment and address concerns over the increasing number of undocumented migrants in the country. For many OFWs, this sudden crackdown has created a wave of uncertainty and distress. Some had been living in South Korea for years, working in factories and small businesses to support their families back home, only to find themselves abruptly detained and sent back to the Philippines. The Philippine Embassy has been assisting affected workers, but the situation remains difficult, especially for those who have nowhere to go upon their return. While South Korea remains an attractive destination for legal migrant workers, this development highlights the growing risks for those without proper documentation. It serves as a wake-up call for stricter legal employment pathways to ensure Filipinos abroad do not fall victim to sudden immigration shifts. As we've seen, thousands of Filipinos are being forced to return home from different parts of the world due to stricter immigration laws, economic downturns, and geopolitical tensions. While many OFWs dream of building a better future for their families through overseas work, these sudden deportations and repatriations serve as a harsh reminder of the challenges they face in foreign lands. The question remains, how can the Philippine government and international organizations better protect the rights of migrant workers and ensure they are not left vulnerable to abrupt policy changes. What do you think about this issue? Do you or someone you know have experience working abroad and facing difficulties? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about the future of Filipino workers abroad. If you found this video informative, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Discovering the Earth for more updates on global migration, travel insights, and important news affecting Filipinos worldwide. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.